Hey everyone, it's Mr. Bassard and I'm here with your lesson of the day. Now today's lesson is actually a story, and for lack of a better description, we'll call this story You Stupid Fighting. And the story takes place back in 1987. I was a young third degree black belt training under my instructor at the time, Grandmaster Kwon Kim. So back in 1987, it was sort of what I had hoped was going to be my year. I'd been training really hard. I had some, not to be boastful, but I had some really good skills in those days. I could jump, I could kick, I could punch, I had great reflexes, and I had a lot of knowledge. So I thought that 1987 was going to be my year. So when the tournament season started that year, I was really looking forward to doing well and representing our school, around the country as we competed. Well, the first 3 or 4 tournaments that we went to in a row, I went to Columbus, Ohio, and drove out there. It took about 6.5 hours to get there. I fought. I lost in the first round, drove 6.5 hours back home. We went up to New York, drove up there for 4 hours. I fought. I lost in the first round, drove back home again. And this sort of repeated itself for the first few tournaments. So I guess it was really around this time of year, so around April, we went to a tournament up in Pennsylvania, in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And it was close enough that we could drive, and my instructor, Grandmaster Kim, asked me if I would drive him to the tournament. And I said, of course, yes, sir, I'll definitely do that. So we drove up to the tournament the day before and slept in the hotel, and he did some things with the other instructors, and I kind of hung around the hotel, and then the next morning we were off to the tournament. Now, at this tournament, for some reason, when it came time for black belt lightweights or middleweights, whatever division I was sparring in at that time, it was right in front of the judges' table. So all of the instructors, the masters, they were all sitting at this table. There were probably 7, 8, or 8 of them sitting there, and they're watching us fight. And so a lot of these guys, they see I've got Kim Studio on my patch and on my back of my uniform, and I'm out there, and I think, okay, today's the day. I'm going to break through. So, we get out there. I had my first match. They call me up. We're fighting in front of all of these head instructors, these master instructors, and once again, I lose in the first round. So as the tournament ends, Mr. Kim says, okay, John, now we go. And I could tell he was a little upset. So we get in the car, and I should tell you, Mr. Kim, his car was this beautiful, large Fleetwood Cadillac, with reclining seats and things that we didn't have in those days. But Mr. Kim, he had this beautiful Cadillac, and so he gets into the passenger side, and when I'm driving, we start the car, and we're driving down the road, and we get about 5 minutes down the road, and I'm kind of quiet. I'm a little disappointed that I lost, and all of a sudden I hear from over on the side here, I hear, you stupid fighting. And I look over and I say, yes, sir. And I just keep on driving, and about 10 more minutes goes by, and all of a sudden I hear again, you stupid fighting. And I said, yes, sir. And, we're about a half hour down the road, headed back home at this time. And now Mr. Kim's kind of dozing off a little bit. He's falling asleep. And then all of a sudden he wakes up and he looks over at me again and he goes, you stupid fighting. And I just said, yes, sir, I know. And all the time, it's kind of building up inside me, The first time it hurt a little bit. The second time it hurt a little bit more. The third time, I can barely keep it down. But I respect him. He's my instructor. I just said, yes, sir, and I kept driving along. So we get down a few more miles down the road, and one more time he says, you stupid fighting. And I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, sir, I know I was stupid fighting, but how can I fix it? And all of a sudden, he looks up and he looks over at me and he says, that's a good question. Then the rest of the drive home, he tells me how to fix it. He tells me, you know, if you're going to go fishing, you have to have bait. You have to have an idea how you're going to catch the fish. And he tells me that next week we have a tournament in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he says, this week that's coming up, I only want you to work on one technique. You're trying too much stuff. Yes, you have good kicks. Yes, you have lots of techniques, but it's too much. The only thing I want to see you do this coming week is lead hand punch. Lead hand punch. Don't practice anything else. And if we go next week to Pittsburgh and I see you do anything besides lead hand punch, you're walking home from Pittsburgh. I said, yes, sir. So I didn't know what to expect. I went back to the school. That whole week I practiced lead hand punch. And I had a good lead hand punch. But I was also doing a lot of other double kicks and spinning kicks and all kinds of things. And what he told me was just to focus on that lead hand punch. So the next week, we go up to Pittsburgh. Now, I don't know what to expect, but I go up to Pittsburgh and we start sparring. And the guy throws a kick at me and I block it, lead hand punch, point. We start moving around again. He's kicking, punching, and block, lead hand punch, point. I'm in the next round. Same thing happens again. Moving around, I block, punch, point. I'm not even using my legs. I haven't thrown one kick. Just a lead hand punch. I go through the whole bracket. Next thing you know, I'm in the finals fighting for first place. Now you got to remember the whole year, I lost every match. First round. Never even made it to the second round. Now I'm fighting for first place. We start sparring again. Lead hand punch, point. Next thing you know, I won first place. Now I lost in the grand championship, but I won first place in that tournament. 1 month later, we had our own tournament. First Saturday of June, 1987. And I'm sparring. Same thing, I remembered. Don't do too much other things, just lead hand punch. Lead hand punch, lead hand punch, lead hand punch. All the way through the tournament. I won the grand championship. I went from lost first round to first place. Then the next tournament, grand champion. I couldn't believe it. Now, this is about martial arts. So what lessons did I learn? Well, lesson number 1, simplicity. What Mr. Kim taught me was that you didn't have to have a lot of different techniques. You had to have 1 or maybe 2 that were really good. So from that point forward, I would throw kicks, I would throw other techniques, but they were only meant to set up my lead hand punch. And it taught me not just in martial arts, but in everything you do. For example, when you're in business, if you have systems or policies or a method to do things, the simpler you make it, the easier it is. And the opposite is true as well. The more complex or complicated something is, the greater chance it's going to fall apart or not work. And that's something that I've used my entire life since then, to always try to keep things simple. So that's number 1. Number 2, be inquisitive. Ask. Because I firmly believe that in that car ride while we're driving home from Allentown, Pennsylvania, if I hadn't asked, Mr. Kim, I know I'm stupid fighting. How do I fix it? If I hadn't asked that question, he never would have told me. He would have just gone on thinking, he's terrible. And he doesn't even want to learn. So, be inquisitive. Ask for help. There's an old saying that I really believe in strongly. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And what that means is until you're ready for the knowledge, it doesn't matter how much someone tries to help you. They can't help you until you're ready to learn. So that's lesson number 2. And those 2 things have been very important for me in my life, not only as a martial artist, but as a business owner, as a father, as a husband, in everything. Remember, martial arts is not just about kicking and punching. It's about your life, your philosophy, how you live, and you need to take those lessons from the martial arts and learn how to incorporate them in other aspects of your life. And if you can do that, it's really going to help you be successful. So that's our lesson of the day. I hope you enjoyed that story. Take care and have a great day.